Hello and welcome to the match preview edition of My Blue Heaven. It is late Friday afternoon. We're still, maybe about 3 hours away from getting the official teams for our big game against Essendon, the MCG, on a Sunday. Cracking weather here in Melbourne at the moment. It's about 23, 24 degrees here at the moment. Beautiful blue skies. Almost feeling just a little bit lazy at the moment. Such is this beautiful weather. And it's not going to be much different on Sunday. Weather predicted to be sunny, 23 degrees. So let's just hope our players aren't in sort of lazy autumn mode, and they're there to play. They come to play, as they say, against the Bombers in an important game. And it got me thinking, actually, before I get onto this preview. It's all been a little bit doom and gloom. Certainly the focus has been on us over the last fortnight or so. Failed in a couple of big games. Obviously the Port loss was hugely disappointing. Some slight improvements against Brisbane and another loss. But it's been all negative talk. And now, where we're at, middle of the road team, where has the improvement come? And I got to thinking there has been a slight improvement, particularly in the way we start games. I think one of the big criticisms of David Teague when he first came in, I remember doing a whole video on our poor starts to games. There were some games where we weren't even scoring and we were getting absolutely blown out of the water. Opposition were kicking 5-6 goals and blowing us away, and our attitude and commitment in those first quarters, even at the start of last year. I remember first game of the year against Tigers was horrific. The game against St Kilda was poor. The game against Melbourne was poor early on in the year. And I think for most part, at least our first quarters, we've been very competitive against the good sides. And we've certainly won the first quarters against Fremantle and the Gold Coast Suns. And I think, you look at 1 point behind against Richmond. The Collingwood game was a bit of an outlier. We were 3 goals down, but at least we had three goals on the board at quarter time. Only 5 points down against Port Adelaide when we led by 8 points against Brisbane. So I think we take a small positive out of that. It's really been the second quarter's been the problem, just losing complete momentum. So that's one thing to look out for this weekend, is the start against the Bombers. And if we do start well, what does that look like going into the second quarter, where it has been a problem and a real drop-off, particularly defensively, losing clearances and not being able to get the ball back and defend. So we'll look out for that this week against Essendon. 2 and 4 both teams. Massive game, plenty at stake, particularly for us, for different reasons. We both sit pretty much identical in terms of percentage on the ladder, and a huge opportunity for both teams to be knocking on the door of the top 8 going into round 8. But different expectations coming into the season means our teams are playing differently, I think. And that's pretty clear for me to see. What I've seen of Essendon, I've watched every game of theirs, is a team that's playing with a fair amount of freedom. And with a fair amount of freedom sometimes comes coughing up goals, and also a very dangerous team, and they can score heavily and very quickly. That was shown in round 1 against Hawthorn, where they blew Hawthorn out of the water in the first half and then capitulated in the second half. And then the surprise packet was when they really started the rot for St Kilda, who haven't been the same since. They kicked 22 goals and kicked 143 points, which is a huge score in anyone's language. And they've brought in, and they bring in another youngster, another debutant, which I'll get to shortly, but they've brought in some real excitement. Nick Cox, Archie Perkins, Harrison Jones, second-year players, a key forward's been good as well. And then the gradual improvement of the likes of Langford and Laverde and Snelling and Hams, and not to mention Darcy Parish. So there's a nice little mix going there with their experienced players and their and their youngsters and their middle range players as well. So they are dangerous in that sense, but at the same time, they had a big game on the weekend, a big Anzac Day game. So will there be a bit of a drop-off? Because there wasn't a lot of emotion in that game. That's what I'm hoping. But if they play with the amount of energy and enthusiasm which they have, they're going to be a very dangerous opposition. And I wouldn't want to be head-to-head with them in regards to this one going right down to the wire, because they're capable. They've got that X factor. They're capable of making things happen. And for us, I think it looks like at this stage that we appear to be playing with the weight of the world on our shoulders. We've put a target on our head in regards to wanting to play finals. And Teague's playing a very experienced team for the most part. We seem to be, I don't know if we're playing with it ourselves, but it's certainly we don't seem to be playing with as much energy and freedom. And that is a worry. So this is beautifully poised, this game. I really think it is. And are we that bad? Have we been that bad? Is the commentary, the external commentary, is it actually aligned to where we're actually at? And I think there's even a similarity. And this is what I think. Have we pulled the trigger too early in getting the likes of Martin, Williams and Saad into the club? Did we probably go a little bit too early at the end of last year? 3 games outside of the 8, so we start to look at free agency and getting mature bodies into the club. We have to do it, but there comes a price if there's not improvement. And Essendon did exactly the same thing. About 4 years ago, they made finals, they bowed out, and then they went heavy. They got in. They got in Stringer, Shield, Devon Smith. And ironically, Adam Saad. They went and got Adam Saad as well. And now he's with us. So it's perfectly poised. It's perfectly poised, this game. And there's a lot at stake and probably more for us. And God help us if we lose this one. Internally, God help us. Sometimes I'm not particularly worried about how we're seen externally. But I don't think any loss, whether it's by 1 point or by 20 goals, is going to go down too well. We should be winning this game. We really should be. We should be actually winning this game quite convincingly against a team which has got a lot of young players in it, a lot of first-year players and second-year players. We should be experienced enough now to do a number on Essendon like we did with Fremantle. But funnier things have happened, particularly when it's such a big rivalry, Carlton v Essendon at the MCG. There's so many subplots to this game. There's the main narrative, which is the 4 points. Both teams, the window opens. If you get a win here, you're right in the mix. There's no doubt about that. The season's not over, so it's all about getting a win and the 4 points. But there's so many little storylines in this game that I love, and a lot of bragging rights as well. And a little bit of nasty stuff as well. Always nasty stuff, particularly at the trade table between these two teams. Particularly the saga associated to Adam Saad. We'll start there. Things were said about him on the way out, which weren't nice, which we took offence to. Maybe there's an element of truth to what was said. Who knows? And let's be honest, as the pay packet which Adam Saad is getting, and it's very young in his career at Carlton, only 6 rounds in. But when you look at the pay packet he's getting, the money plus the pick 8 that we gave away for him, are we getting our return? Are we getting bang for buck at the moment for Adam Saad? You'd have to say no. But at the same time, he hasn't been bad. But I wouldn't say he's made us any better thus far. But it's a long year and it's a long journey with Adam Saad. He's still young. He's still got a lot of football in front of him. But pick 8, then you go to the pick 8, and the Bombers really forced that out of us. They dragged that out of us. And they were able to pick up Nick Cox. And we've all seen in the first 6 games the potential of that kid. And that's going to be a scary proposition moving forward. So on one, you give up. Did we need to get Saad? We give up pick 8 on big money, And then you see someone like, someone like Nick Cox come in and do what he's been doing. And that, for me, this weekend, also with the fact that Nick Hind, who's come in as a replacement for Adam Saad, and they got him for a packet of chips, the Bombers, pick 67, has come in and probably done as good a job of what Adam Saad could do at the moment. I think at his best, Adam Saad's a better footballer. I don't think anyone can argue with that. But right now, right here, the numbers are pretty much the same. And you could probably mount an argument that Hind's been slightly better. 119 disposals, Saad, Hind 136. Saad 15 tackles, Hind 17. Saad 19 bounces, love to bounce the ball, Hind 11. Saad 6 intercept possessions, Hind 7. Average 440 metres gained, Saad, Hind's running at 452. And kicking efficiency, Saad 67, Hind 72. This scares me a little bit if Hind comes in and has a huge game and a big impact on this game and Saad has an ordinary one. We need Saad to play a good one in this game. We don't necessarily need him to dominate, but we need him to have a good one. And what worries me is I think Rutten and Carousella are pretty smart. They know his game pretty well, and they'd be fully aware of his strengths. And it's going to be a challenge for Saad. It's going to be a huge challenge for Saad. But on the other side of the ledger, what sort of intel does Saad bring to the table for us about Essendon from last year? I did see a couple of moments from Nick Hind. This is no knock on the kid because I think, he's not a kid. He's no spring chicken. But there was a couple of moments. And what a moment is I saw him just take his eye off the ball a couple of times. It hit the deck and they were darting around. So I wish we had some really physical players in our forward half who could really put the fear of life into Nick Hind. I don't think we've got them, which is unfortunate. But I did notice a couple of times that he went, okay, and it was just a little bit of margarine just slipping down the leg of Nick Hind. But that's a huge one as far as I'm concerned, and massive bragging rights as well. The second one I want to talk about is the Ruck. I thought Andrew Phillips was right to go, but we've heard this afternoon that there's going to be another debutant. And I was looking forward to the Andrew Phillips, obviously, because he was at Carlton up against Mark Pittonet. Phillips left because we got Pittonet into the club, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. It was almost like we were getting rid of the older model and bringing in a younger model. But Phillips is out once again with injury, and they bring in Nick Bryan, a second-year player playing his first game. So they're debutant, they're fifth for the year, 19-year-old, 202 centimetres, from the Oakley Chargers, dominated in the last two VFL games. He's had 32 hitouts and averaged 20 disposals in the VFL. And he comes in against Mark Pittonet, 25, and it's still an inexperienced ruckman, but in terms of body and strength, this is huge. This is huge because this kid can jump and he's athletic, and that's not something that Mark Pittonet is. And by the look at those numbers, he knows how to win the ball around the ground as well. I hope a 19-year-old doesn't come in and have a very good first game against Mark Pittonet. Pittonet is serviceable. Has he shown any real improvement? No. Has he been a steady performer? I think he has. We've even snuck him in for a couple of votes along the way. But I think we're all looking forward to getting TDK back. But talking about TDK, I was interested in hearing Ross Lyon's comments about our list and about our young players, and he said that we had stars on every line. I love Ross Lyon. I reckon he's fantastic. And I love him in the media as well. He said stars on every line, Wiedering, Walsh, and Harry. No doubt Wiedering and Walsh are already stars. Harry's well on his way. And then he threw in TDK as a star. Well, spare me, Ross. Please, give me a spell. We're all looking forward to getting TDK back, but he ain't no star. And just because Geelong apparently offered up a first-round draft pick for him doesn't mean TDK is a star. He's anything but a star. He might have some star attributes, and down the track we'd like him to become a star. But right now, okay, we don't know. We really don't know what TDK is going to bring to the table. So I found that quite funny. And I'm sure that would have warmed the cockles of a lot of Carlton's supporters' hearts when they heard Ross Lyon say that TDK's a star. He hasn't even played 10 games. So he ain't no star. So let's not kid ourselves. We've got Pitnet at the moment. We'll get TDK back shortly. Okay, but he's going to have to work into the season. He's coming back from stress. I think it was it stress fractures in the back? So it's going to take him time. And really, he hadn't established himself at all. So at the moment, we've got Pitnet, and he's got a huge job against a 19-year-old. And you'd like to think that Pitnet will dominate that and give us first use. I mean, the only things that Pitnet is, in terms of stats, that he's above average in is hit-outs and hit-outs to advantaged and score involvements. Now, he's able to, and this kid is good at the centre bounces. He's really good at the centre bounces. So he's probably going to possibly jump all over Pitnet. And I think we win this game comprehensively if we dominate centre clearances. Because I don't know how Essendon, and I know defensively they have improved, but I don't know how they defend Harry and even Levi and McGovern if we get quick ball movement out of the centre. I just don't know how. I don't know how they can stop Harry. They've got players out. They get Ridley back. They'll probably lose Francis. They've got Zerk Thatcher, who's a little bit undersized. There's no Hurley. There's no Stewart at the moment. So we need to make sure that if Pitnet, and his main attribute is hit-outs to advantage, that needs to translate into clearances out of the middle. If not, really, he has no impact on this game at all, because we need to make sure we are winning those clearances out of the middle. The other one is the relief ruckman. And this worries me because Levi's so much out of form, and I've seen a lot in Peter Wright, 2 metre Peter, this year. And they got him for a bag of chips as well. I think they gave away Essendon a future 4th round pick, a future 4th rounder for Peter Wright. Now, he was huge last week. I don't think Levi's, possibly, but I don't think Levi's probably ever played a game like that Wright played last week. He probably has. I'm being probably a little bit disrespectful. But that's the impact we would like to see from Levi. Wright last week, 10 marks, 4 contested, 2 clutch goals. Both from outside 45, 1 on an angle, 1 in the third, 1 in the last. And he can go into the ruck and he can win the ball around the ground. He's got a terrific set of hands. At the moment, we are getting absolutely, other than structure, okay, because we need to be straightened up, we're not getting much from Levi at all. 0 marks last week wasn't good enough. So that worries me, okay? It's not so much when Pitnet is in the ruck, it's when Pitnet isn't there and what Peter Wright can actually do. That can become important as well. The midfield battles, okay? The little subplot here, there's a little bit going on here. Obviously, Zach Merritt. There's a lot of talk around Zach Merritt, free agency, and we've got Cripper, obviously, free agency. The fact that both these boys were from the same draft. Cripper pick 13, Merritt 26. Who would you rather in your team? That's an interesting question. Who has been the better player? Is it Merritt? Is it Cripper? I think most would say Cripper, but it's a really interesting debate. And it's going to be important this weekend because Merritt has really flown under the radar this year because of the improved form of Darcy Parish, who I'll get to in a second. He's a free agent, hasn't signed yet, and if you believe some people, we're right in the mix and we're one of 5 clubs that are really interested in getting Merritt to Icon Park next year. And these are his numbers this year. He doesn't hurt you on the scoreboard. That's one thing, he doesn't hurt you on the scoreboard, but he has a lot of goal assists. But these are his numbers: 31, 28, 34, 27, 35, 34 disposals in the first 6 weeks. He's putting together a really, really good start to the season. The last 2 weeks, he's had 14 clearances. Okay, so 7 and 7, which is big, and he's in super form. Okay, and once upon a time, you probably just want to put some work and time into, say, Merritt or Shield, but now there's a number of players there, and they haven't got Shield. But you would mount an argument now that Darcy Parish is just as effective because he uses the ball better. And these are Darcy Parish's numbers, okay? He's a 6-year, all right? He plays his 100th game. He's a top 5 draft pick, all right? And he's averaging 26 disposals a game this season, and he's kicked 6 goals, and he's a pure competitor. Now, I've heard during the week a number of Carlton supporters say, if only we gave Dow those opportunities in the midfielder, okay, we could see him develop. It's a load of hogwash, okay? It's not a very good comparison, because Darcy Parish, that's the way you want a top 5 draft pick to develop. Come into the system, look pretty good, maybe taper back a little bit, have a few concerns, but then really build. And that's what he's been doing. These are his numbers over his first 6 years. Average 20 disposals first year, 21 second year, 20 third year, 22 fourth year, 19 last year in the shortened times, and then he's gone to 26 this season. These are Dow's numbers in his first 4 years. 14, 14, 9 in 3 games last year. Only had 9 disposals in 3 games last year, and he's only averaged 10 in 5 games this year. He's a mile behind where Darcy Parish was in his 4th year. I would like to compare Parish to, say, David Cunningham, because they're the same draft, okay? Both taken in that 2015 draft. Obviously, Darcy Parish, more highly rated, pick 5, but Cunningham, no slouch at pick 23. And Cunningham's attributes are really good, really good. He's got some attributes that people like, all right? But he's played 38 games. 38 games, David Cunningham, and he's in his 6th season. Darcy Parish plays his 100th game. He's a street in head. And I understand that Cunningham's had his injury concerns, but he's had opportunities as well. Lots of opportunities, and he's drifted in and out of games, shown tiny flashes, tiny flashes. This is a huge test for us on the weekend, because we're seeing a 6-year player in Darcy Parish start to dominate the competition. And that's why this midfield of Essendon is really growing and dangerous. Dangerous. Because we're going to have David Cunningham in our midfield mix, and he's going to get big numbers. Or he's going to get big time. Big time in the midfield. He had 17 disposals last week, and we thought it was a really positive performance. We're saying a 17 touch game is really good. That worries me. It worries me because he needs to take that to another level, and he needs that consistency to grow. So the midfield battle has a lot in it. Not to mention Cripper v Merritt. Okay, but you've got McGrath as well, 33, 24, 23, 20 disposals, 30 disposals, 21. Okay, number 1 draft pick up against Sam Walsh, number 1 draft pick. There's no doubt Sam Walsh is well ahead of McGrath, but McGrath's no slouch. Throw in Devon Smith, throw in the improvement of Langford as well. It's a handy midfield brigade in there. But the ruck is going to be important, remembering they don't have Sam Draper at the moment, their number 1 ruckman. I'd like to talk about the small forwards, because the forward lines are interesting in this game. And it's been a bugbearer of mine in the fact that we never really invested in a small forward until now. Corey Durden will ply his trade in the VFL. Not a problem with that. It's going to take him 2 years before he comes on, I reckon. We might see him in the back end of this year. We'll hopefully see him next year, but it's a long wait. He's 18 years of age. If we had invested a little bit better back in 2015 when we first started this rebuild, we'd be in a much better place now, because I still think it's a huge concern. I think we still lack X factor in our forward half. Obviously, Charlie, but X factor in terms of the small forward. Eddie's well past his best. In 2015, we took Jesse Glass McCasker, and some of you are going, who the hell is that? Jesse Glass McCasker, a key defender with our pick 1 in the rookie draft. We already went big. We already went big with Wiedering, Harry and Charlie in that draft. But then we went big in the rookie draft as well. Staring us right in the face were 2 players. One was Tom Papley, who got picked up at pick 14 in the rookie draft. And the other one was a guy called Anthony McDonald-Tipton-Woody, who got picked up at pick 22 in that rookie draft. McDonald-Tipton-Woody has now played 112 games of AFL football. He is a genuine star. And he is everything you want from a small forward. He's aggressive, he's smart, he's electric, and he makes the opposition fear. Opposition defenders, they fear when he is around. His defensive acts are elite. And I'll talk of his rundowns, of his corralling, his pressure acts. Just unbelievable. He has his off days. He has his quiet days like any small forward. But when he's on, he's on. And what he does probably better than any other small forward in the competition, his execution is the best. He's kicked 14 goals 5 this year. 14 goals 5. 5 goals straight last week in the Anzac Day game. I'm hoping that was... Sometimes small forwards have one out of the box. Sometimes they go again the following week and have another one. He hasn't, other than the first time he played against us in 2016, where I think he kicked 4, where the Bombers sunk us at the MCG in the last game of the year. He hasn't really taken us apart. I remember him kicking a goal late to sink us maybe 3 years ago, but I reckon Plough's had him for most of the time. Plough's done a reasonable job on him, but he's going to have his work cut out for him. We're going to see how a real small forward works and how hard they work and how dangerous they can be. Not only the defensive pressure, but their class and then their execution to finish. He worries me. Okay? And then they have X factor in Stringer as well. It's not a forward line which you look at and go, wow, they're going to cause us a lot of headaches, but they do score heavily when they get on a roll. Okay? And they've got Hooker playing down there as well. And you have to look at us. I mean, God love Eddie, 2 goals 8. He's kicked this year. But he's the only player that provides us with some genuine X factor down there. Who else provides us with some genuine X factor? The only one I can think of that can come in at this stage and provide that is Josh Honey. And Will. I mean, they're bringing in a debutant, Essendon. Why wouldn't we? So the changes, will it be a Jack Silvani? Bloody hard worker, Jack, and an intelligent footballer, but does he has X factor? No. I don't think Dow, Setterfield or O'Brien are ready to come back in. I want to see a body of work from them in the 2s. Josh Honey is the only one I'd like to see to debut on the big stage, and possibly Luke Parks to come back in after a couple of weeks out with a hamstring injury. We'll just have to wait and see at 6 o'clock. The final thing I want to talk about, okay, before I wrap this one up, in what is going to be a huge game for us, an absolute friggin' ball breaker, is the coaching. And there's a fair bit in this as well. Okay, big game for David Teague. Made some really good changes last week, showed that he was flexible. All right, he needs to make sure that he sticks with those, okay, and they need to work. They need to work. I mean, that's incumbent upon the player as well. But are they reactive moves, or has he got other moves in him? Rather than listening and go, okay, we'll change them. You know, SBS up onto a wing, Stocker in the back half. Are we going to see Stocker suck right back to the full back line where he might be uncomfortable? Do we want to see that? Will Cunningham be persevered now in the midfield? Not just, you know, he might go out of the game for a little bit so they push him away. I thought the move of Cottrell forward last week, to me, didn't work. He's on the wing, but now he's pushed SBS up on the wing. He's pushed Cottrell forward. So I think we lose a little bit there as well. Do we persevere with Doc up onto it as a defensive winger? I didn't particularly like the move of Nunes into the back half. Okay, so can he change that? How does he work that? These new roles. And then there's all the other things as well. The loss of momentum at quarter times. What's being said? What's being worked on there? Transition. Okay, not being able to win the ball back and get the ball out of our back half. And execution. Okay, not being able to set up behind the ball, okay, when we turn the ball over. They're all the little things we'll be looking for from David T, because what we do know is that Ben Rutten, early, very fresh into his coaching career, has got a lot of work to do. Okay, but he's been part of a successful club as an assistant coach at Richmond, and so is his right-hand man in Blake Carosella. Both are very shrewd. And a nice little thing, a nice little sideline, nice little subplot here is that we now have John Worsfold. We now have John Worsfold as a mentor. And did David T go to him during the week to get some info from Essendon? God, I'd hate to put up a poor performance this week against the Bombers, with that now hanging over our head. I mean, he coached the Bombers for 5 years. He got them to the finals twice, but the wheels bloody fell off pretty quickly there. And the Essendon blame him for a lot of that, which is unfortunate for John. But now he's at our club, our arch rival. We've got the former coach of Essendon now as a mentor with us. And we play them. We play them on Sunday in a huge, huge game. We just, look, I know it's very simplistic, but we just have to win. It'd be great if we smash them and beat them comprehensively, but we just have to win. And God help us if we don't.